guitarist disappeared, everyone assumed he ran away, but he hadn't. He was stuck. Welcome back to True Stories. Join the family in exploring some of the most twisted true crime cases. As always, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. Joshua Maddux was born on March 9, 1990. He lived in Woodland Park, Colorado, with his dad Michael, brother Zachary, and two sisters, Ruth and Kate. Josh was homeschooled for 2 years, but eventually, he enrolled at Woodland Park High School. Josh had always been into music, and by the time he was in high school, he had become a talented guitarist. He would spend most of his spare time jamming with his friends or writing in high school. He also created a series of comic strips and shared them around the school. Life was going well. But in 2006, tragedy struck. In 2006, Josh's older brother Zachary took his own life when he was just 18 years old. The whole family was affected, and it was clear to Michael that his children would never be the same. Josh turned 18 in May 2008. Although he never fully recovered from the loss of his brother, all his friends and classmates described him as a jolly guy with a great sense of humor. Josh was a big fan of nature, and often went on walks or hikes alone. This behavior started after Josh lost his brother. He just wanted to be with nature a lot, and became much quieter. On May 8, 2008, Josh told his sister Kate that he was going out for a walk, but he never returned. Josh often kept to himself, and went for long walks alone. His family didn't think much of it at first, but when he didn't come home at all that day, his father became worried. Josh's family was juggling two thoughts. On the one hand, he should be fine since it was not unlike him to be out in nature, but on the other hand, he had never been away this long. Finally, on May 13th, 5 days after Josh left, Michael called the police and reported him missing. The police searched every corner of the national forest for Josh, but days turned into weeks, and there was no sign of Josh. The last person he spoke to was his sister Kate when he left his home. Kate ended up writing a Facebook post about her brother. Since Josh was 18 years old, it was reasonable to assume that he might have decided to leave town and start a new life. Starting a new life became the running story for his family. Michael even kept the old family house in case Josh ever decided to come back. Just like that, August 12, 2015, marked 7 years since Josh's disappearance. The Maddux family accepted that Josh had left them, but soon there came some very tragic news. Chuck Murphy, the owner of a local construction company, decided to tear down one of his old cabins in the woods. Neither he nor anyone else had visited the place in over 10 years, and he thought he would start over with that piece of land. The place was damp. It smelled like hell, and no one had a reason to go there except to tear the building down. When the builders broke open the chimney, they found a human's remains stuck inside as they dismantled the chimney and made their way inside. It was Chuck Murphy who discovered the gruesome body of a young man pinned in a death position upside down with his legs above his head. Josh was stuffed upside down in the chimney about a meter above the ground, the remains so decomposed that the builders described them as mummified. Chuck quickly dialed for the police. They arrived on the scene with the coroner assisted by a forensic authenticator. Using dental records, they identified the remains as Joshua's. The cabin was less than half a mile from his home. The news devastated Josh's family. The brutal reality of his disappearance finally hit them. He died a lonely death as soon as he left home in 2008, where no one heard or rescued him. The police were looking into all the factors that could have led Josh down that chimney. The coroner performed an autopsy on Josh. The report stated that there was no evidence of drugs in Joshua's body. In fact, no evidence of anything at all. He stated that the hard tissue showed no signs of trauma. He had no broken bones. There were no knife marks or bullet holes. According to the coroner, he died of hypothermia. He was alone in pain and too far away to be heard or scream for help. The police closed the case and ruled that the cause of Joshua's death was accidental. However, Chuck Murphy was not satisfied with this scenario. He issued a statement that went directly against the coroner's report. Chuck installed heavy rebar at the top of the chimney in 2005 when he took over the property from his parents. This was 3 years before Josh died in the chimney. The reinforcement was designed precisely to prevent creatures from entering the property through the chimney. Also, Chuck Murphy noticed that the breakfast bar had been ripped from the kitchen wall and placed next to the fireplace. This meant someone was trying to prevent Josh from coming out of the chimney. Even with all these details, the police still ruled Josh's death an accident. When police received a call from an 18-year-old who said he heard someone say, "I put Josh in a hole," The tip was initially ignored, and Josh's case remained closed, but a few years later, one of Josh's former classmates posted on Reddit. He wrote, "I went to high school with this skinny hippie named Andy who played guitar in a band. I was never good friends with him or anything, but about a year after I graduated, one of my good friends, Josh, started hanging out with him, and then he disappeared. The last I heard, Andy was telling another friend." Andrew Richard Newman and Josh went to high school together, and jammed together for a while. In May 2009, Andy befriended a man named James at a bar in Albuquerque. They had a few drinks together, and Andy asked James if he could crash at his place that night. James agreed, and they left together with James' disabled friend. When they got home, James went to take a shower, and when he returned to the living room, his disabled friend was dead. He was stabbed in a wheelchair, Andy was gone, and he continued to flee New Mexico and enter Texas. Andy spent several years in prison before being arrested again in 2012 on 7 charges, including assaulting a police officer, before being arrested twice more. Finally, in December 2018, Andy was arrested in Brazos County, Texas. He attacked 3 police officers, and is currently on the run from Florida as a fugitive. Joshua Maddux disappeared in 2008, shortly after coming to know and play music with Andy. The coroner's examination revealed no signs of trauma to the body, such as knife marks or bullet holes, but his fixation could not be ruled out. Josh was likely strangled. People worldwide have been discussing the case and pointing fingers at Andy Newman in frustration at the police's refusal to reopen the case. One Reddit user commented, "This is beyond frustrating. Andrew Richard Newman is the killer." Therefore, Josh's case was closed and not investigated further, while several believe that Andrew Richard is the killer. But what do you think? Who is the real killer? Or was this just a very spooky accident? We've come to the end. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Till next time.